Sorry.
Okay, so I've been saying it right the whole time.
Yeah.
Never know. I got Adam's last name wrong for at least a year and a half. We got 8 games today on Thursday morning. I'll tell you what, before we get into lineup study and on Fantasy Cruncher, have you seen the pitching for today's slate? I mean, for only 8 games, there are a lot of options.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. It should be pretty exciting to talk about too. Like we've got options in every tier. We've got some underpriced good pitchers pitching in good parks for pitching. Like it's good all over the place. So that's why you're seeing the low totals. I'm only seeing a couple teams right now with 6 implied totals, which is
Mm-hmm.
a little bit unusual in today's game.
As a matter of fact, you have one at 6-6, one at 6-3. Then the next closest is 5-1.
Yeah.
So it's not spread out at the top in terms of like high expected run totals today, but you've got a 3-6, a 3-7, a 3-9, a 4, 2-4-2s, 2-4-3. So a lot of teams, like you said, really not expected to score a lot of runs. We'll break that down first. Let's take a look the lineup study. Who are we looking at today? We want to look at your mini max finish.
Yeah, we can look at mine. I've got the 50K pulled up. I'll pull up the mini max as well. So I got second last night. I just had a ton of Yankees. Didn't quite get to the top spot here, but I know this guy that won Fire Dog 50 is actually a really good low stakes player. And I see a lot of familiar names in the top 20 or so. Bunch of Osmo logos I saw up there. So yeah, I mean, I played a ton of Yankees and ended up with a 228, 45 Yankees. And the reason I got onto a lot of Yankees is I wasn't on shows, and so I was running around, but I did take a quick look at the top stack tool and noticed they were going really under-owned.
Yep.
So I was looking and seeing how I could get more of them. I was prioritizing hitters, and they were chalky, sure, but I had 3 times the field on LeMahieu. I was 1.5 times over on Judge, and then like all their secondary pieces like Higashioka, I had a ton of those guys as well. So it works out when your top stack scores 14 runs, and I found the right combination. I think it was like an Eric Thames one off, and it was Kikuchi Paxton with a 4-man Yankees, 3-man. Oh no, 5-man Yankees, and then Merrifield, Thames, and who was my last guy? I don't know. I'm missing here, but Keston Hira. So it was a 5-2-1 with the Brewers. Hira had 39.
Yeah, yeah, his
DK
first
points.
2 home run game.
Yeah, so that always helps. And Kikuchi, I didn't think he was going to get up to almost 20%, but 19% owned. I think I was somewhere around the field with that.
Well, he was
Um,
projected at 30+% on DraftKings.
was he really? Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I had 30% actually,
Yeah, so you were
29.3,
basic. I mean, I don't know what was his actual ownership there?
18.9.
Okay, so yeah, he was projected a lot higher. I didn't like Kikuchi yesterday. Like I acknowledge that he could have a solid game because it's the Padres, but he had been so terrible from a strikeout standpoint. But that's baseball, man. And
Yeah.
the thing is, he was at a price on a 5 game slate where rostering him made sense. Um, I like the Padres too. They weren't good, but you know what? That kind of explains why you take second here. You look at all of the other teams. I mean, Boston had a very high run total. They finished with 4 runs. Royals finished. It's suspended in the top of the 10th still. Brewers had 8 runs, but it was basically all Keston Hara. There wasn't really a lot outside of that. And then Pittsburgh did nothing. The Diamondbacks were pretty quiet, and the Phillies had 1 run. So I mean, it was all Yankees yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't have Yankees, it was pretty much log off at that point. Once they started piling on the runs, and I was just looking at these other tournaments. You're seeing again a lot of familiar names. Ricky D, who's just been on a massive heater lately, took down the 50K. Alex was just cashing over 50% of his lineups in basically every tournament. 92 out of 150 in the $15. Let's see, he got 4 out of 9 in the 555. Made some nice profit there, and then I think he won the $66 for 5K, but he profited almost 12K in that tournament because he cashed 14 out of
Damn,
his 26.
that's not easy to do.
No, so he was just all over the leaderboard. Didn't take down the big one, but just a really nice performance out of him once again, which we've
All
been
right,
accustomed to
there
seeing.
it is. Lineup study, Fantasy Cruncher. Check it out. We have the add-on on awesomemode.com. Use the promo code MLB Strategy. Get 50% off your first month. Ownership projections. You get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. It is an add-on, but you can get it. Projections, the top stack tool, which, as you mentioned, was really helpful and pretty much integral in you winning last night, or at least gave you a guiding light. Outside of that, we've got a whole lot more articles behind paywall and a lot of free content as well, including seasonal NFL content, which I definitely suggest you check out, especially if you're getting ready for your drafts. Use the promo code MLB Strategy, get 50% off your first month.
Yeah, you guys have been crushing it on the season long content. I've been reading all that and doing some editing,
man.
and you guys are putting in a lot of work.
We did an internal, we did a mock draft, but I think we're going to use it as a league on Tuesday, and you should see the results of that.
I haven't looked at that one yet.
Yeah, you should
I'll
check that out. I mean, we're putting out like a small article on it just to kind of give a breakdown of it. There are some wild picks, and Alex went off of his projections that he's going to be using, or that he's going to be putting out on the site any day now. So it's kind of cool to see what he came up with based on the projections that he literally just made this summer, which is awesome.
I heard a couple guys he's pretty high on, and it was a little bit shocking to me just being like, I like football, but being a casual fan, I think like Winston, he said he's super high on.
I love that though. I love that.
Yeah, that's pretty.
I mean, look, when you're in an offense that's going to throw 40 times a game, unless Ronald Jones ends up being actually good, but volume, man, it's all about volume. And a lot of leagues, interceptions are only -1 anymore, so makes sense. Wait till you see where guys like actual rushing quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson are ranked. That'll blow your mind. All right, we got 8 games. Let's just jump right into it. Like I said, there's a lot of good pitching, man. There's really a lot of good pitching. And we've seen 12 and 13 game slates recently where it's hard to find 2 pitchers you like. You're going to have a much easier time. It actually might be hard to try and get a core of pitchers because you're going to have to not eliminate some guys, but they're going to come in underweight on certain players that you probably wish you had more of. So we'll start with Toronto and New York, Domingo Germán and Pannone. Germán's facing Toronto. This feels like one of those guys where on a lot of nights I could be very interested in him. I don't know how much I will be today, just given everything I just said.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get to Germán. There's just so many other quality options on this slate, at least on DraftKings. So maybe across other sites, I haven't seen his price elsewhere. 9.4 FanDuel looks like 46 on Yahoo. That looks actually really appealing right off the bat because he is a pretty good strikeout arm. You're in an okay matchup against Toronto, and he's a -200 favorite almost. So, the one thing I thought with Germán this season is that he would just have trouble going deep into games, but back-to-back starts of 7 innings with 7 Ks. He's got a bunch of 6-inning
really
starts.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, the strikeouts haven't been crazy. Looking at his K percentage for the season, he's at 26.6%. That's really solid. But it seems like he's traded in a few of those strikeouts for going deep into games, getting past the 6-inning threshold, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, I mean, the price really isn't bad. It's not great depending on where you're looking, but a lot of that just comes down to, I mean, on an 8-game slate on DraftKings, you have 4 guys above 10K. Chris Sale, Aaron Nola in San Francisco, Clevenger at Minnesota, and Boyd actually the most expensive against Kansas City. So you have a lot. What about Toronto? Obviously, you're not. I'm assuming you're not interested in Pannone, but do you have interest again in these Yankees bats?
Yeah, I think I do. The Yankees are just so tough. It's like whoever they throw out there in the 7, 8, 9 hole, they just seem to produce no matter what, whether it's Ford or Tauchman or Valera or Higashioka. I mean, anyone in this lineup has just been
the depth
really
is
well.
insane.
Yeah,
the depth is like unimaginable with the amount of injuries they have.
Right. So Gleyber Torres is not expected to be in. No problem. I mean, they scored 14 last night. Still no Stanton. We forget about him being in the lineup, being an everyday player. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like when they get those guys back.
What about Sanchez, Encarnacion,
Yeah,
Luke Voigt,
it's just wild. I
Aaron
mean,
Hicks?
right, and they've got good pitching too, so they've got to be like a World Series favorite. I don't even know what their record is. I'm assuming it's really awesome. I know it was earlier in the season, but
I think it's got to be the best in baseball, and if it isn't, I would say the Dodgers is. Let's see.
yeah,
Um, so the Dodgers have 77 wins.
okay,
Yankees have 75. So yeah, Dodgers have actually been the best team in the league this year.
yeah, not surprising. And two just super deep lineups, and also teams with good pitching as well. There's like Pannone is 4,200 on DraftKings, so you can make a case to play basically any pitcher that's 4,200. It's just a hellish matchup here against the Yankees, so you just kind of got to know what you're getting yourself into. I'm much more likely to take Yankees bats here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. And when we talked earlier about some of the totals, uh, one of the only two above 6 is the Yankees here in Toronto. So my guess is they'll be pretty popular, but we've seen them less popular because a lot of these guys are seeing their prices come up so high.
Right, exactly. Like it's just tough to pay almost 5K for Talkman lefty batting eighth, but if you're stacking up the team and people are just disregarding some of these guys that are decent hitters, it makes sense to pay up to be contrarian.
Yeah, and it's also possible Pannone doesn't make it more than 3 innings in this one. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. Then we'll talk about the Boston Red Sox, LA Angels, Chris Sale, Dylan Peters. All right, so let's break this one down. Chris Sale is 10,000 on DraftKings, 9,600 on FanDuel. Now, it's pretty incredible given that he's been his upside. I mean, what has he had? Probably multiple 50 fantasy point games, or at least really close. We know that he has that upside every time he's on the mound. It's just a matter of whether or not we want to consider him against the Angels on a pretty deep slate. He's 50 on Yahoo, which is the highest priced pitcher, but also a lot cheaper than we've seen him. What are your thoughts on Sale here against an Angels team that doesn't strike out, but also has not been nearly as good recently either?
Yeah, they've been striking out a little bit more recently. And depending on who's in the lineup is obviously going to make a huge difference, whether it's Pujols or like if Matt Tice sneaks in there, someone like that. No Lucroy in the lineup obviously helps. I think he's with the Cubs now. I think I saw an alert yesterday that he got signed with the Cubs or something. But it's, there are, I think, some strikeouts at the bottom of this lineup, and then Sale is just an elite pitcher, and you're getting him at 10K. So I like Sale a lot. I'm expecting him to project pretty well for this price, even in a tough matchup. I think 10K, you're getting a really nice discount on Sale. So no Angels bats for me, and probably I think there's a pretty good chance Sale is my highest owned pitcher today.
I could see it. We don't have ownership yet, but I'm really curious to see what his ownership looks like, because Sale's one of those guys that if he's cheap, it doesn't matter who he's facing, he's going to get ownership. But I don't know if that'll be the case today. I think it will be, but I don't know. I guess you do it. Even Nola in a better park against the worst team, it's hard to pay 600 more for Nola than Sale, regardless of matchup.
Right. That's the question. So I just don't know how I get away from Sale here. Unless all of a sudden he's projected for like 18 DK points, then we've got a conversation for sure. But I would expect him to grade out as a really nice value here, especially with the win equity. He's a minus 240 favorite right now.
Yeah, and his last 2 games came against the Yankees. So, I mean, I have no problem looking at that and saying, I mean, and by the way, they were awful starts. I'm not going to pretend that he was even remotely decent. I think he gave up 14 runs in 9 innings. It was bad, and he wasn't getting strikeouts either. But we just talked about it. I mean, they should be a World Series favorite right now. I'm not too concerned. So I agree with you. Chris Sale in a really favorable spot because of the price point. When you're this cheap and you know that he could go out there and strike out 10 across 7, you just have to bite the bullet. Mm-hmm. What about Boston bats?
I like them.
They are, by the way, the only other team with a 6+ run total.
Yeah, so I wonder how much Boston I'm actually going to get to just because I'd like to pay up for pitching, at least in one of my pitcher spots today, and maybe two, depending on how it shakes out. But you look at the pricing on DraftKings, and you've got Mookie at 5,200, Devers 54, Bogarts 52, JD 53, and then Benintendi in the sixth spot, 5,100. So they're just really difficult to stack. I think that's going to make their ownership a little bit lower than it probably should be relative to their chances of being the top stack. So I'm going to try to get to a bunch of Red Sox here. And I'm probably going to have to give a little bit of boost to hitters in order to do so in Fantasy Cruncher.
Is there any cheap pitching on your radar right now? Because you're obviously going to have to, on two pitcher sites, you're rostering at least one cheap pitcher if you're getting Boston Red Sox stacks in.
Yeah, you can probably make a case for like a Jorge Lopez here, depending on how many pitches we think he could go. And then it's pretty gross. I don't know. I mean, Eric Lauer might be a guy we're considering in a favorable park. The guy I really wanted to play was Elisa Hernandez, but I think he's going to be limited to like 65, 70 pitches. So that's the issue there, but he's still at 50. What is he at on draft? 5K.
5K flat. Yeah.
So there are options, but they're not great.
It's not, you're probably right in saying Jorge Lopez, even if they say he can throw 75 pitches at 4,800, it might not be the craziest idea against a super inefficient Detroit team. I don't think you're wrong. We're going to have to go somewhere. You're not like, you can't play Chris Sale and John Gray and, 4 or 5 man stack Boston.
Right. Exactly.
At least I don't think you can.
Yep.
All right. Cincinnati. And unless you had anything else from this game.
No, I don't think so. No bats against Sale here. Even if I don't end up getting to a lot of him, there's no way I'm getting to Angels here.
All right, Cincinnati and the Chicago Cubs. Cole Hamels, Alex Wood. Alex Wood's made a couple starts this season since returning from the IL. He was on the IL for like 3 months or more. He looked actually really solid in his last start against Atlanta, his former team. But he's just not a polished strikeout guy. He's not. We can't expect him to get strikeouts. On the other side, Cole Hamels against the Cincinnati team that, just shipped off one of their best players at the trade deadline. Pretty anemic offensively from top to bottom. But once again, deep pitching slate, where does Hamels fall into all this for you?
I don't think Hamels is going to be in a lot of my lineups tonight. Just at 8,800, I mean, you've got John Gray and Bumgarner for cheaper with lower implied totals against. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to get to Hamels. It's a fine matchup. He's a favorite. The park is difficult. And you still have guys that, at least one guy that you're pretty worried about in Suarez. I don't think the Reds are terrible. They also don't strike out that much. Just a 20.6% rate against lefties on their active roster. So I think Hamels is going to get squeezed out for me on this slate. And then Wood, probably the same thing. I mean, the third highest implied total against on the slate. You're not getting a huge discount on him at 7,600. Cubs actually are striking out at a decent clip, 23.4% for the season versus lefties on their active roster. But just a scary lineup to try to go up against for a pitcher we don't think is all of a sudden changed into a guy who's going to strike out 28% of hitters or anything like that.
Yeah, it's tough for me to get behind either of these guys. Like the Reds don't have power. I think they have a bottom 5 ISO versus lefties on their active roster. It's bad, but they have a 328 WOBA, not bad, 20.6% K rate, as you pointed out. Like they're not a great team. They just don't make for a great matchup.
Right.
I think you can be a little bit more choosy on a slate like this instead of, having to go to a Hamels or an Alex Wood. At least that's the way it looks like it's going to shape up. Haven't really built lineups or put stacks in yet, but it looks like there are too many good pitchers in the top and that mid-range to have to settle on an Alex Wood.
Agreed.
What are your thoughts on hitters on either side of this?
So I love Suarez anytime he's against the lefty. I think Aquino is also a guy I'll get to at 3,800 on DK. He's only $10 over on Yahoo. So I like those two guys in the middle of the order. The Reds are super cheap on Yahoo across the board. No one in their lineup outside of Suarez above $13 on on a slate where you're not getting a lot of these massive implied totals. I think the Reds make sense as a value stack against Hamels. And then for the Cubs, just the normal guys. Chris Bryant, Castellanos is at 17 on Yahoo. Baez is priced up, but the bottom of this order is also pretty cheap on Yahoo. A couple min salary guys in Bodie and Caratini, and then Almora at $8. So a lot of value on Yahoo. On DraftKings and FanDuel, I'm not seeing as favorable of pricing. So more just a Yahoo play, value on both sides.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I always try and look at weather for this one just because Great American can be really friendly park for opposing hitters. If there's any humidity, it's going to be almost 90 degrees there. So, I mean, it's always a park where you can see a lot of runs scored. But in general, I think you're right. These Cubs bats would be, if I'm going anywhere, it would be Cubs. But would you say either of these teams are high on your list tonight on, say, DraftKings or FanDuel?
I just think the Reds are going to be over-owned because of their pricing on DraftKings. But Suarez especially, I think he's going to be a priority for me at 4,300 third base option. Haven't built a cash lineup or anything, but I would imagine he's going to be in contention for cash. And then Cubs pricing actually isn't too bad on DraftKings. So I think Cubs for stacking, I might get to them on DraftKings and FanDuel. And then probably just Suarez for the Reds.
Yeah, and the one thing I usually don't mind about the Cubs against lefties is you do have guys like Almora and Bote that come in and are at least discounted. Castellanos in the lineup is going to bump them down a bit, but he's pretty reasonably priced too. So you get a ton of not great righties, but a bunch of good righties at the top and some decent ones at the bottom of the lineup. It's kind of an interesting spot. Detroit, Kansas City, on to game 4. Midway through it already. Matt Boyd, Jorge Lopez. Well, we talked about Lopez a little bit. Let's start with him. Is this probably the guy you see yourself getting to at the bottom just based on price and the fact that the Tigers are arguably the worst offense in the entire league right now?
I think so. They're just so bad against righties. But even still being really bad against righties, they have a 5.1 implied total right now. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, it's pretty outrageous.
So is Lopez that bad? I don't know. The Tigers have been terrible, striking out 26% of the time. 76.
Sorry, I have 4.9 for what it's worth, but yeah, it's pretty high.
That's one of the higher ones on the slate. That seems crazy for a team that is just awful versus righties. And I look at these Tigers bats and who you really want to target here. I get that they're cheap and they have a good implied total, but there's not a lot of hitters that jump off the page for me. Maybe Goodrum at 4,200. But Lopez is just a righty pitcher at 4,800 who I think could go 5 innings here. So I think he's going to have a chance at the win if things go well, and everyone has a chance for strikeouts against Detroit these days. He's got a respectable 21% K rate on the season too.
Yeah, I know. And by the way, you're right. It's up to 5-1, which is pretty insane. I still have interest in Lopez though, just because Vegas is one thing, but Lopez, the Tigers are a really bad team. I mean, whether it's weighted on base average, ISO, WRC plus strikeout rate, they're either bottom 2 or top 2 if it's strikeout rate. They're just bad across the board. I guess really the only question is how many pitches can Lopez throw here? Because like I said, if he could throw 75, 80, I really don't even have an issue with it at this price.
Oh yeah. And oftentimes at these prices, you don't even want him to go past 80. You don't want him to the lineup.
You don't want him to face the lineup for the third time.
Yeah. So just give me 75, give me 4 or 5 innings and a few strikeouts, and I'd love that for 4,800 here.
For sure. What about Matt Boyd? He's really expensive on DraftKings. He's 11.2. 10-4 on FanDuel is pricey. It's not crazy, but it's up there. It's up there with Nola and Clevenger. And then Boyd on Yahoo is 43. So he's actually the 6th highest priced pitcher on Yahoo.
Yeah, completely different world from site to site when you look at Boyd's price. I think he's in play on FanDuel just because I think there is a path for him to lead the slate in raw points. On DraftKings, though, you really want to pay $1,200 more for Boyd than Sale, even factoring in ownership, because I don't think I want to. It's just really, really a tough price to get to on DraftKings. Like, the Royals are bad, but it's not like they're an elite strikeout matchup either. So, I don't know. Probably staying off of Boyd on DraftKings almost entirely, and then on Yahoo, completely different. Like, I would love to have Boyd. You could fit Boyd and Sale lineups pretty easily over there, so he's one of the better options, I think.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's Yahoo specific, but I mean, he's clearly better on Yahoo than anywhere else. Because again, I'm going to have a hard time paying more for Boyd than some of these other pitchers, even if he's in a decent spot. It's not the greatest strikeout spot, so I'm definitely not in love with him. Do you have any bats that you like from either side?
I mentioned Goodrum, but it's not like his price is super favorable. And if Detroit's getting ownership, I'd rather go to like a Cincinnati or another team that's priced in the same ballpark. Merrifield for the Royals really jumps out to me. $17 on Yahoo. Boyd has given up some power on the season, and you got a little bit of wind blowing out to left field, so gonna play favorable to righties.
He's given up a lot of power.
Yeah, like just solo home runs. It seems like every start he gives up one or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's up to 1.5 home runs per 9 on the season. So probably just Merrifield. FanDuel, he's also got a good price, $3,300. But I don't think I'm looking to stack up the Royals against Boyd.
Yeah, not looking to stack him up for sure. But if you one-offed one or two of these guys, there's definitely home run potential there. You just got to find ones that actually have power and aren't slap hitters, because we know too well the Royals have enough of them. Miami and Atlanta. Dallas Keuchel, Alicia Hernandez. I don't know, man. I have a feeling that Keuchel's probably going to be pretty chalky.
Hernandez is?
No, I think Keuchel.
My bad. Man, you think so?
I think he's going to get some ownership. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see once it's updated.
Oh, man. If Keuchel's getting ownership.
Look, I could be complete. Let me see if we can get these ownership.
8K. Okay, so he's 8K DraftKings. Keuchel's 87 on FanDuel, 45 on Yahoo. Man.
I meant DraftKings specifically. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, still 8K. I mean,
he is. People love that Miami matchup, though.
Wow, I get the Miami matchup is good, but that doesn't all of a sudden make Keuchel a great strikeout arm, you know? So
no, it doesn't. You might be right. He might be negligible, but I know we'll see. Let's see. It'll come out while we're doing the show, so we'll pull it up. I mean, what's your thoughts on Keuchel here?
It's a favorable spot. I mean, it's Miami. They're a below-average team versus lefties. Average strikeout matchup 22.2% for the Marlins this year versus lefties. They actually have a little bit of power against them. I don't think you need to go as far to play Miami bats here, but if Keuchel is going to be chalky, like if he's over 15 or 20%, I think I'm just going elsewhere and taking, John Gray or Bumgarner or someone else right next to him in price, just because outside of the 12 strikeout game that
he's terrible with strikeouts.
He's just not a good strikeout pitcher. So, like if he has any of his other starts that he's had so far this season, like if he gets you 20, I mean, congrats. But I think someone else in this 8K range has way more upside than Keuchel.
It's just hard to find. Yeah, like you're saying, it's hard to find the upside here.
Yeah.
Plus, you know what? Maybe he won't be because he's left-handed. If Keuchel was right-handed, the matchup becomes a whole lot more appealing. Miami's not a good team against lefties or righties, but at least against lefties, they're not like absolute pure dog shit.
Right.
They're bad, but they're not as bad as they are against righties because their whole lineup's loaded with right-handed bats. Their K rate's lower against lefties. Pretty much everything's better. Not by much, but they definitely strike out a lot less against lefties, which makes sense. So I just don't know where the strikeout upside would be here.
Yeah.
What about Hernandez?
Uh, so did you look to see how far he could go? I saw an Emacs article. Um, Elieser might go only 60 to 75 pitches. Let's see where he's at. Through 75 on the third. Okay, so he's fully rested. Only went 3 innings. I don't know, man. Even if he's giving me 75, 80, I think I'm probably going to play some of him. I know it's not a great matchup, but it is a great park for pitching. And he's 5K, and we've seen him rack up strikeouts before.
So do you like him, say, over Jorge Lopez?
I think I have to give the edge to Lopez right now, but I don't know. I'm going to do some more digging on Elise's pitch count. So, and I want to see where Alex has him projected, because if he has him projected as a better value than Lopez, then I'm probably going to stick with that.
All right, so we should have ownership. Let's take a look.
Cool.
You can check it out at awesomeo.com. Use the promo code MLB Strategy to get 50% off your first month. Dallas Keuchel, there it is, dude.
Oh.
Fourth highest pitcher.
Oh my God.
21%. I had a feeling he'd be up there. Yep.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Sale, John Gray, Bumgarner, then Keuchel. Higher than Nola, Boyd, Herman. How about that? Jorge Lopez at 3%.
Wow. Okay, I'm surprised. So I'm surprised about a couple things here. Number one, Keuchel. I didn't think he would be over 20, but yeah, you were right on that. You got the feel of the people, the public.
Yeah.
Boyd.
Pulse.
Yeah, Boyd at 15% also is a little bit surprising. So I don't think either of us have started to build lineups yet, but maybe it's a little bit easier to fit in Boyd at 11-2 than I thought when I just looked at stuff. It must be just a little bit easier to fit him in than I anticipated. So that's a little bit surprising. Didn't think he would be that high. I think I agree with the Sale ownership. And then looking at hitting, the one thing I'm noticing is that there are not a lot of expensive bats outside of a couple Boston guys that are getting a lot of ownership.
Well, but that's what's fascinating is the highest ownership goes to Sale at 10K, Gray, Bumgarner, and then Mookie Betts and JD and Bogarts are all really, really high owned.
Yeah.
So is Devers, actually 15%. This entire team being expensive is very popular. So I think what we might see a lot of is like John Gray and Bumgarner, John Gray, Keuchel, Bumgarner, Keuchel. That seems to make sense with, 2 8K pitchers.
Yeah. So when I looked at it, it looked like Boston wasn't chalky, but now all these guys, yeah. So Betts over 20, JD almost 20, Bogarts, Travis makes sense because he's cheap. He's going to be the guy that pops in the optimizers. And then Devers. Wow, I'm surprised Devers.
I know.
Okay. So I guess it's a clear pecking order right now. Boston is kind of everyone's favorite stack, or at least the easiest one to fit in. And then the Yankees are behind them as far as ownership.
Yeah. Well, now we know. This is pretty fascinating too. Chris Bryant up there, Aaron Judge. It doesn't look like a lot of Chicago, just Chris Bryant. And it looks like just Aaron Judge from the Yankees. So you're right. Oh, I guess Castellanos. No, you're right. It looks like mostly just expensive Boston bats are the ones getting the large majority of ownership right now. So that's pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. Anything else from Atlanta, Miami you want to discuss?
No one's jumping out to me for the Braves here. Like their pricing is fine, I think, but not a great park. And I think if I'm paying up, it's probably to Boston or the Yankees on this first look. One more question we had in chat, just kind of an interesting one. Does the advantage go to hitters or pitchers when facing off for the fourth time this season? Have you thought about that at all?
No, honestly, I haven't. I mean, I would think it goes to the hitters.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you would think it would go to the hitters because they've seen the pitcher more, and they're the ones that have to react to him. But I don't honestly, I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure there's like a definitive answer.
Right. So that's why I said it's just hard to quantify. I think, like, I would think it also goes to the hitters just because you're seeing what pitchers are throwing and what they like to throw in certain counts. So maybe there's a slight advantage, but I don't know. Like, if it's a pitcher as good as, like, Sale or someone, I don't think it really matters that much because no one's hitting them if they have their best stuff anyways.
Especially because pitchers face the same team so many times each season in their division. Like, there's so many division games every year where, Chris Sale's probably facing the Yankees 5 times by the time the season's over. It's nothing unusual, especially not this late in the season.
Yeah.
Mike Clevinger, Kyle Gibson. Clevinger's another really good pitcher. But where does he fall into the mix for you here? He actually went out and mowed down the Angels last time out, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's been spectacular all season. So obviously the tough matchup here with the Twins is what's going to get people off of him. Where did he end up in the first run of ownership? Wow, under 5%. That seems crazy for the guy with the highest K percentage on the slate by 2.5%, almost 37% K rate for Clevinger so far this season. He's not giving up power. I mean, he's not walking too many guys. He's just been incredible. Lowest xFIP on the slate as well. So if you're just getting him completely unowned, I could see going there, at least getting overweight on a Clevinger, even in a tough matchup against the Twins. But you've got some favorable ballpark factors in an already favorable hitter's park in Minnesota. Wind blowing out to right, 75 degrees. I don't know. Do you think you're going to get to Clevinger at all?
Like, I could understand why people got there last time out because it was a pretty weak pitching slate, but I don't know if you have to here. I mean, I guess the biggest advantage or the biggest argument in favor of Clevinger is just that he's getting like literally no ownership. So I think that's really it. Like, it shows you what type of a slate it is for pitching when Herman is only 7%, Clevinger's 2%, Cole Hamels against the Reds is 2%.
Yeah, it's like I feel like I'm going to have FOMO on this slate when I look at my exposures and I see that I'm going to not have at least a couple earlier, of these guys. Right? Like,
I know.
You got to get away from a couple of them at least.
Yeah, and I think outside of Keuchel, I think this is right. Like, Sale and Gray were the two guys that caught my eye immediately. Bumgarner, I can understand that at his price too. The Phillies are garbage. I really do believe that too. I mean, I'm furious with them, but I also think they're a bad team.
I haven't heard that take so far this season that the Phillies are garbage.
I mean, they're pretty bad, dude.
Are they? What's the record?
I mean, they're in the wild card, but they're pretty bad. Look, let me put it to you this way. Given their hitters, they should be way better. Like Harper, Hoskins, what? Like, think about the bats that are in this lineup. They should be better, but their pitching's terrible too. Like, outside of Aaron Nola, you're starting games with Drew Smyly, Jason Vargas. You're playing Vince Velasquez in left field in extra inning games, and he was better than he's been on the mound. Although, to be fair, he's been okay. Nick Pivetta, had to put him in the bullpen. Arrieta can't throw more than 70 pitches. Like, the bullpen's trash. It's telling you, man, not a great team. They will not make a playoff spot. They'll fall out of the wild card because they're not good.
No, that midseason Jason Vargas pickup. You kidding me?
Yeah, I know. You want to talk about moving the needle. My God.
Oh, man. That's funny.
They picked up Drew Smyly because they needed a left-handed starter that bad. And his first 2 starts were great. And then it was like, oh, there's the Drew Smyly we all knew and loved. Got blown up. So I don't know, man. They're not that good. And they do have some power from the right side. Don't get me wrong. But ultimately what I'm saying is that Bumgarner is still a good pitcher. And he's not overpriced either. So I really don't have any issues going to someone like him, which, coming full circle here, is why I understand Clevinger being practically unowned.
Yeah, I think Nola in that game may be the reason I don't get to Clevinger. I don't know if it's necessary to get to Clevinger here, even though he's a massive strikeout arm so far this season.
Yeah. Look, if I see Clevinger in lineups, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's stupid.
Right.
just because it kind of doesn't matter who he's been facing. He's got excellent strikeout stuff. Um, but I understand why he's not very popular. Thoughts on Kyle Gibson?
Uh, I I don't think I'm gonna get to much Gibson. I think I'm probably just seeing myself stick to Gray and Bumgarner in this range. Honestly, they've got more favorable parks and just as good of strikeout matchups as Gibson does. So
Yeah, it does
he's
feel that way.
yeah, Gibson's just frustrating for a number of reasons. So I mean, against a team that's surging in Cleveland, looks like they're pretty healthy. Um, you know, I just don't think I'm going to get to Gibson here at 7,800, and I'm probably going to get to Lindor and a bunch of Jose Ramirez for 4,300 here.
You could get me to pay for Gibson at this price point in a lot of matchups, but I don't, like you said, I'm not sure this one is good enough because he's been very good lately. He does have strikeout
Mm-hmm.
stuff. He's not a bad pitcher. He's very unpredictable, but the Cleveland Indians are just one of those teams that make life difficult on righties. They can get really heavy from the left side with all the switch hitters they have in the lineup. Um, and like you said, they seem to be hitting a lot better right now. So I'll pass. Even though, look, Gibson, by the way, Gibson's strikeout rate against lefties is 21%. It's 26% against righties. So a big difference there. And this is not the matchup you're looking for if you're Kyle Gibson. So, all right. What about bats? Any bats from either side? Do you have any tepid interest in Cleveland?
Yeah, Cleveland, I think, is the more interesting stack here. They're pretty well priced. And like you mentioned, they've got all those lefties. Wind blowing out to right is certainly going to help. And Gibson, there's going to be a lot of balls in play, at least from the left side for Cleveland here. They're only striking out at a little over 20% versus righties with this active roster. And lefty power is what I'm looking for here. So Santana, Lindor, Ramirez, that's kind of where I cut it off. But you've still got good righties in Puig and Mercado as well.
All right. 6 down, 2 to go. Philadelphia, San Francisco. We kind of just teased this one. Aaron Nola, Madison Bumgarner. This is a good spot for both pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nola. Well, okay, so Bumgarner is obviously the better value play here against the Phillies, who you say are awful. Bumgarner's been pretty solid this year. I've been a noted Bumgarner hater for a couple of years now, but almost 24% K rate on the season. Just a phenomenal park to pitch in, best in the league. And he's 8,400 on a slate where I want to get up to some bats. I want to go double mid-tier with Gray and Bumgarner in a bunch of lineups, and maybe even Lauer, who knows. So I think the slate kind of calls for Bumgarner. I agree with the ownership. And it's just a perfect park to pitch in. So he's the guy that I'm going to get to more. The question is, are we going to get to Nola at 10-6? If Sale's ownership starts to rise and it starts getting up over 40, and you're seeing Nola go somewhat overlooked, like if he drops to, let's say, like 12 or 15%, I think it starts to make sense to go to Nola because he is also a massive, high upside arm. And the Giants are a pretty good matchup, and he gets to pitch in that same park as Bumgarner does. So right now, I think the ownership is too close between Nola and Sale for me to consider trying to make a heavy stand on Nola. But if it starts to spread out a little bit, I think I'll get more and more of Nola.
Nola is striking lefties out at 28.3% too, which you're going to need in this specific matchup. The leading K rates on this slate, Nola's fourth. As far as matchups go, he's actually one of the best, but Clevenger's at 36.9, which is crazy. Less innings pitched than Sale, of course. He's at 34.6. Boyd at 32.6, then Nola at 26.9. So there's definitely a drop off there, but how much of the matchup plays it? How much does the matchup play into it for you? Like, is this a good enough park and matchup for you to say, all right, I can overlook the lesser K rate in favor of the matchup, especially given that, Sale's matchup and Clevenger's matchups aren't exactly pristine either.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a Giants team striking out the 12th most versus righties this season, 23% almost. And it's not like they have a bunch of power or anything. just an 89 WRC plus as well. So I don't know. I think I like the pecking order right now would of course be Sale, and then I think it's Nola for me, and then Clevenger, even at only.
You're talking about of the high priced guys.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just really interested to see where this shakes out. I'm interested to see where all these guys are projected because I do have a lot of interest in Nola if his ownership starts to drop here.
All right. Well, what about bats? Anything from I mean, it's hard to have much interest in hitters here.
If I'm getting to one team, it's probably your Phillies here, just because you've got Rhys Hoskins at 4,200, Real Muto 42, and even Bryce Harper at 42 as well. I know it's a terrible park, but you're also going to get some leverage off of Bumgarner. They've just got good hitters, like you said. They've got good hitters. They're not performing as well as they should, though.
All right. One more. San Diego, Colorado. Eric Lauer, John Gray. It's really difficult for me not to be interested in John Gray here. I mean, I've been of the belief for a while that Gray's a good pitcher. I still think he is. Only 24% strikeouts this season, but he's facing a team that strikes out at a ridiculously high clip versus righties. He's got of course, a great park shift from Coors Field to Petco. There's always some red flags with Gray, but I think all in all, he's a strong pitcher, great slider. I expect him to get strikeouts in this game.
Yeah, pretty much the best strikeout matchup you could ask for here for a righty pitcher. Padres at 26.5% with their active roster for the season. And they actually, I thought they'd be better versus righties. A 90 WRC
they're
plus.
Good versus lefties.
Yeah.
They're pretty bad against righties.
Yeah, 90 WRC plus. It's a little bit disappointing. They don't walk all that much either. So I think all systems go here for Gray. I mentioned Sale might be the highest owned pitcher for me, but I think the more I look at this and the more I try to get to expensive bats, I think Gray could actually end up as my highest exposed guy just because just points per expected strikeout. I think Gray is probably like the number one option as far as value goes here.
Yeah, no question. Look, he's a pretty volatile pitcher, but generally speaking, in good matchups, he's pretty good. So we'll see. I don't even think you have to look that far into it. You play him, and you just know that the San Diego Padres have one of the highest K rates in the league.
Yep.
That's really all there is to it. All right. Well, what about Eric Lauer? You mentioned him earlier. Do you think there's any, reasonable way that he would find his way into lineups for you right now on DraftKings? He is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7th in ownership, 13%. So he is getting some. And then on Yahoo, another 2-pitcher site, Eric Lauer is 11% at $30.
I think I'm going to get to some Eric Lauer here. I wouldn't want to be making a massive stand on him, especially if he's at 13%, because the Rockies aren't a bad team at all versus left-handed pitching. They're about average in K rate and WRC plus and all that. But Lauer is a guy who is a home favorite in a decent park, and he's under 7K. And I think I'm going to need that oftentimes when I go to Sale, and if I get up to Nola and Boyd for that matter, Clevenger as well. So I think I'm going to get to Lauer quite a bit as an SP2, and it's mostly just a price play more than anything.
All right. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, by the way, sponsor of the MLB Strategy Show. No MME over at Yahoo. No 150 lineups, 10 lineups max in all of their contests. 0% management fees on contests if you get in early in the day, meaning they take nothing off the top. And some of the lowest management fees in the industry. You can get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points, which are as good as money. Use them on the site just by signing up, depositing through us at awesomeo.com. Here's a very simple way to do it. We can't post the link in the YouTube chat. Apologies for that. Go to awesomeo.com. You'll see the Spotlight Hitters article right on the homepage. It's totally free. Click that. The Yahoo link is right at the top. So use that. Sign up, get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. Use the sign-up code AWESOMO when you do. All right. What about bats here?
Let's see. I mean, you could almost always make a case to stack against Gray here. I don't know that like outside of ownership, I don't think there's a huge reason to do that because you'd want to get some lefty power in there, and you got Eric Hosmer and Josh Naylor and Mejia to choose from. So it would just be an ownership stack against Gray, and I think I'm much more likely to get over the field on Gray than I would be on Padres. Arenado, Story, and Desmond are all very solid one-off plays against Lauer. I don't think I'm going to get to a ton of stacks on either side, though. What about you?
I don't think so either. No, I don't really think it's necessary. Like, could you always make an argument for Arenado and Story against the lefty? Yeah, of course, but they're not priced far off. Like, especially Story, not priced far off the Coors prices. So I don't know if you're really getting much out of it. Although, God, Story's been phenomenal, man.
Yeah, I mean, I always forget about the stolen bases too. I don't know that he's been stealing a ton, but
he's got 14 stolen bases. That's not bad.
Yeah, like that is such a nice boost. They're so undervalued in daily fantasy, and there's a reason I always get to Story in Alex's projections because they're really good projections and they account for those extra stolen base opportunities that you're not seeing with a lot of these top tier power hitters.
Absolutely. All right. I guess that'll do it, man. Anything else from this game? We're down 8 games.
No, pretty good slate. I think this will actually be one of the more fun ones to prepare for in a while. I pulled up the Spotlight Hitters article on the screen and highlighted where you want to go if you guys want to go to Yahoo and get your Yahoo Sports rewards points. So you just go to EMAC's article, give it a read. EMAC worked hard on the Spotlight Hitters. Check out Josh's Spotlight Pitchers articles as well. I'll have cheat sheets out on the site as soon as we can get projections up. And I'm on Live Before Lock with Josh today. We're switching it up. Myself and Josh on Live Before Lock, and you guys on the Deeper Dive, of course.
Very nice. Yeah, just Adam Shar and myself. Alex Baker will be back with us on Monday. He does Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with us. All right, Jake, before we head out, top stacks for this slate. We've talked about Boston and the Yankees. Both of them have really high totals here. Then it kind of falls off a cliff to Atlanta, Detroit, Cubs, Minnesota. Minnesota's at 4-6 against Clevenger. Who are your favorite teams here? It's still early, but what are you liking early on?
I do like Cleveland now that we've gone through the slate against Gibson. Just assuming they roll out a good, at least balanced lineup, hopefully lefty heavy lineup. And then the Cubs, I like more and more against Wood. We've only seen it once from Wood so far this season. And that's also a really nice park to target. So I like the Cubs, Indians, then of course the top two. Outside of that, it's going to be tough to get bats here.
Yeah, I think so. I'm with you on the Cubs. It feels like a spot where at these price points, they could be pretty valuable. All right, well, that'll do it for us. Before you head out, hit us with a thumbs up if you like the show. You want to see more and you want to help support us at awesemo.com. Help support the channel. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. Subscribe, hit the notification bell as well so you always know when content's dropping. Until next time, we'll see you back here tomorrow morning on the MLB Strategy Show.